Because you cannot build a regulated, expansive business from a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot receive at a higher level if part of you doesn't believe you're worthy of it. And you cannot out-strategy scarcity. It will always leak through if it's not addressed. Hello, and welcome back to the Quiet Leaders podcast. I am going to just jump right in today and say that 2025 was one hell of a year. And that's honestly the simplest, most accurate way that I can describe it. So I'm sitting here today in December 2025, reflecting on the year and how my life looks nothing like it did when we started. And I don't mean small changes. I mean my entire life literally looks different. So let me paint a little picture for you guys, because at the beginning of 2025, I was in a relationship, I owned a home, I lived in a different city, my routines, my environment, my sense of stability, it all looked very different. And if I'm being honest, I was truly different. I really was a different person. Now, fast forward to now, at the end of 2025, I live in a new city, I'm in an apartment, I'm single, I have a new vehicle, and more than anything, I feel different. And what's interesting is that when these changes were happening, they did not feel exciting. They did not feel expansive, and some of them were really heartbreaking. Some were terrifying. Some felt like I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. But sitting here now, I can tell you with complete certainty that it all was worth it. My life has elevated in ways I could not have imagined. Not because everything was easy, but because I chose alignment over comfort and growth over familiarity and truth over illusion. So, in today's episode, I want to walk you through the biggest lessons that I learned in 2025, what shifted for me personally and professionally, and what I'm forecasting for 2026, both in business and in life. And I think this is going to become an annual tradition because next December, I'm going to listen back to this episode and see what came true, what didn't, where I was wildly wrong, and where I was right before I even had proof. All right, so let's dive into it. So, what did 2025 teach me? So, number one is that only 20% of what you do actually creates results. This is one of the biggest lessons of this year, was realizing that most of what we do does not move the needle. We stay busy, we stay productive, we stay in motion, but really only 20% of our actions actually create results. And in 2025, I really stopped glorifying effort and started prioritizing impact. I paid attention to what actually led to clients saying yes, revenue increasing, momentum building, and energy expanding instead of draining. And when I removed everything else away, things really got simpler and better. Now, number two is that you have to be excited about your offer to sell it. So, this one is a pretty humbling one to learn because if you're feeling kind of meh about your offer, your audience is going to feel that too. And I learned that excitement is contagious and that belief is really magnetic. And if you aren't fully behind what you're selling, there is no strategy that's going to save it. So every time I refined my offers in 2025, it wasn't about adding more bells and whistles. It truly was about asking, would I buy this? Does this light me up? And am I proud to stand behind this? Do I have conviction for this offer? And when the answer was yes to those, that's when sales happened. Now, number three is that inner work is not optional. This was truly one of the biggest lessons of 2025. And that inner work is not optional if you want sustainable growth. And I'm not talking about surface level mindset work. I mean deep, honest, and sometimes really uncomfortable inner work. Now, this year, I invested heavily in myself in ways that I truly never had before. I went through a root coaching program with Betsy Hurden at Illuminate Holistic Wellness Center. I will link that in the show notes if you're interested to learn more about that, because this truly, honestly changed my life. And for the first time, I truly understood who I am, why I am the way I am, and where so many of my patterns actually came from. And not just in business, but in relationships, decision making, boundaries, and how I respond to stress and uncertainty. And that work really gave me a language for things that I had always felt but couldn't put a name on it. It really helped me see where I was operating from old conditioning instead of conscious choice. And more importantly, it really gave me the tools to shift those patterns instead of just being aware of them. Now, alongside that, the inner work that I did with Kayla and Lisa inside of Rise Leadership Circle took this even deeper in a different way. Now, this work wasn't about tactics or strategy, it was about worthiness, scarcity, safety, and the subtle ways those things show up in how we price, how we sell, how we lead, and how much we allow ourselves to receive. Working with them, I really started to see how often I was making decisions not from alignment, but from a quiet fear of, is this enough? Am I allowed to want more? Do I really get to have ease and success? And once those beliefs came into the light, everything changed. Because you cannot build a regulated, expansive business from a dysregulated nervous system. You cannot receive at a higher level if part of you doesn't believe you're worthy of it. And you cannot out-strategy scarcity. It will always leak through if it's not addressed. The inner work I did in 2025 didn't just make me a better business owner, it made me more grounded, clearer, and a calmer human. And the ripple effects showed up everywhere in my confidence, in my sales, in my boundaries, and how I move through uncertainty. This year truly taught me that elevation doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from healing what's underneath and letting yourself expand from a place of safety instead of survival. Now, number 4 is that it's easier to sell high ticket than low ticket. Now, this might come to a surprise to some people, but it is totally true. High ticket sales require that clarity, confidence, and trust, and not the volume. So it's all about that relationship building. And in 2025, I learned that aligned clients don't need convincing, they need to resonate. And that leads me to one of the most important lessons of the year, which is number 5, in that confidence is a sales strategy. I've talked about this time and time again. I have a whole other podcast episode on it, which we can link in the show notes. But this is one of the clearest lessons that I did learn in 2025, in that confidence really is a sales strategy, especially as an integrator. Because as integrators, we are not selling tasks. We are not selling deliverables. We are not even selling systems. We are the offer. Our presence is the product. What clients are actually buying is the calm we bring into complexity, the stabilization we bring into chaos, the ability to walk into a moving, messy business and say, I've got this, we'll figure it out, here's the next step. And that doesn't come from being the loudest person in the room or having the fanciest pitch deck. It comes from that grounded confidence. In 2025, I learned that when I trust myself, When I'm confident in my ability to see the big picture, make decisions, and hold the vision alongside a client, people immediately feel that. They relax, they exhale, they stop over explaining because this confidence signals that safety. Clients are not buying perfection, they're buying that regulation. They're buying leadership. They're buying someone who can stay steady when things feel uncertain. And the moment I stopped trying to prove myself and started simply embodying the role I already knew how to play, sales became easier. Conversations became simpler and decisions became clearer. Confidence isn't about having every answer. It's about trusting that you can find the answer, guide the process, and lead through the unknown. And for integrators, that quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need hyper urgency, is often the most compelling sales strategy there is. Number 6, abundance over scarcity every single time. Another massive shift for me in 2025 was abundance. I didn't just talk about abundance this year, I actually changed my beliefs around it. For a long time, even while teaching and leading others, there was still a quiet layer of scarcity underneath, a belief that growth had to be earned, competed for, protected, that if one person won, someone else must be losing. And 2025 dismantled that for me. I came to truly understand that abundance isn't a limited resource. It's something we co-create. There is room for all of us to grow. There is space for multiple people to succeed at the same time, in the same industry, serving the same types of clients in their own aligned way. My growth does not require someone else to shrink. Someone else's success does not threaten me. And once that belief landed, not just intellectually, but energetically, everything shifted. I stopped making decisions from fear. I stopped guarding ideas. I stopped playing small to stay safe. Instead, I started leading from a place of openness and collaboration. Because at the core of abundance is this: we are powerful creators. Our thoughts matter. Our beliefs shape our actions. And the way we see the world influences what we allow ourselves to receive from it. When you believe there is enough for money, opportunity, clients, creativity, you move differently. You speak differently. You show up more generously, more confidently, and more grounded. And that energy is contagious. Operating from abundance does not mean bypassing reality or pretending challenges don't exist. It means choosing to believe that solutions are available, support is possible, and expansion doesn't have to come at the expense of anyone else. That belief alone has changed how I lead, how I sell, and how I support others. And it's one of the foundations that I'm truly carrying forward into 2026. Now, number 8, which is a fun one, just kidding, not number 8. Number 7 is that play is not a luxury, it's a requirement. One thing 2025 really reminded me of again and again is that play is not a luxury. It's not something we earn after the work is done. Play is actually a strategy. Somewhere along the way, especially as ambitious, capable leaders, we're taught that fun is frivolous and joy is optional, that life gets serious and we just need to push through. But that's not what we're meant to be doing. This year taught me that experiencing life through play, through curiosity, laughter, creativity, and presence is essential for not just happiness, but for clarity, creativity, and momentum. When business felt heavy in 2025, it wasn't because I needed a new plan. It was because I needed more life, more joy, more spaciousness. And this showed up in really tangible ways. It showed up in being able to play with my kids, like truly play, to be present with them, to get on their level, to laugh, imagine, and be a kid again myself. And I realized how powerful that is, not just for me, but for them, to show them that adulthood doesn't mean losing joy, that building a life and a business doesn't mean sacrificing fun, creativity, or presence. I also went on a creative retreat this year, and one of the biggest challenges there was letting go of perfection. I had to create without polishing, without refining, without needing the outcome to be impressive or productive, just creating for the sake of creating, having fun with it, letting it be messy, letting it be imperfect. And that was incredibly uncomfortable, but also incredibly freeing because play removes pressure. It reopens possibility. Play reconnects us to that intuition and inspiration. When I allowed myself to play again, ideas flowed more easily, decisions felt lighter, and business started moving forward without force. Play isn't the opposite of success. It's often the doorway to it. And in a world that constantly pushes productivity and performance, choosing play is actually a radical act of leadership. It's a reminder that life isn't something we're trying to get through. It's something we're meant to experience fully. Now, finally, number 8. This is the last lesson of 2025. There were many, many lessons, but this was the last big one. And that's momentum, alignment, and intention. My word for 2025 was momentum. And what I learned from that, deeply, personally, and sometimes painfully, is that real momentum doesn't come from pushing harder. It comes from alignment. 2025 was the year my life truly came into alignment. Not because things were added, but because so much had to be released. I had to shed identities that no longer fit, relationships that kept me anchored to an old version of myself, environments that felt familiar but no longer supported who I was becoming, and patterns that once felt safe but were quietly keeping me small. Alignment required honesty. It required grief. It required trust. There were moments where I felt like everything was being stripped away, and at the time, it didn't feel like momentum at all. It felt like loss. But looking back now, I can see that every release created space for clarity, for peace, for confidence, and for a life that actually feels like mine. That's when momentum truly clicked for me. Momentum isn't speed, it's coherence. It's when your values, energy, decisions, and direction all point the same way. Intention became everything. How I showed up, how I made decisions, what I said yes to, and what I finally allowed myself to say no to. And from that place of alignment, everything else began to move with far less force and far more trust. All right. Now, those are some big lessons that I learned in 2025. This was truly one wild year. It was the year I turned 30. So for those of you who are nearing that age, 30 is a great year, I promise. And now I'm looking forward to what this next decade will bring me. So now let's shift into 2026 and what I am forecasting for next year. So what do I see coming in 2026? Here's what I believe is ahead, and not just for me, but for this space as a whole. So number 1, relationship building will matter more than ever. In-person connections are coming back in a big way. People are tired of being sold to, being marketed at, being treated like a lead instead of a human. So trust will be built through relationships, not algorithms. Number 2, the noise is only getting louder. There is so much noise in the online space. More content, more AI, more opinions. And that means clarity and simplicity are going to stand out more than ever. And I actually think that with the rise of AI, it is going to slow down and we're going to start to pull back a little bit and do things in a more simple way. AI is not going anywhere. A lot of us have figured out how to use it efficiently, but it's going to just look a little different. We're not going to see so much AI in your face. And again, this is just my predictions. This does not mean it's going to come true. Number 3, people will start buying again, but differently. I believe buying energy is shifting. People just aren't asking, does this work? They're asking, does this feel aligned? Do I trust this person? Does this fit in my life? Sales will be slower, but they're going to be more intentional. People are going to do things for themselves because they want to grow, they want to evolve. And that is going to be really important in 2026. Number 4, health, wellness, and nervous system support will continue to rise. So people are really prioritizing regulation over hustle, especially with the younger generations here. We are seeing that a lot. And sustainability over burnout, quality of life over constant growth, and businesses that honor that are going to thrive. So this goes back to some of those big lessons that I learned this year in terms of the inner work. And that is something that I'm always going to be doing. It's not something you do once. It's something that you embody and you continue to do. Number 5, visibility will expand in unexpected ways. So this is more specific to my business in that my word for this coming up year is visibility, and that I will see bigger rooms, different platforms, unexpected opportunities, but not from trying harder, instead through alignment. Number 6, simplicity will win. I already mentioned this right off the bat, but we're going to go a little bit back to the basics. We're going to go into clear offers, clear messaging, clear leadership. Complexity is exhausting. So this simplicity is going to be magnetic. People are going to crave that ease and that flow. And finally, number 7 is that uniqueness will matter more than ever. Generic's not going to convert anymore. Authenticity will. And we've seen that a lot over the past few years, is that the genuine, authentic people are the ones seeing the success. So your story is really going to matter. Your perspective, your lived experience, that is the advantage. And if you're listening to this and you're really feeling that pull, that sense that something in your business is ready to shift, simplify, or finally come into alignment, I want you to know that you don't have to figure that out alone. In January, so coming up pretty quick here, I am hosting my 6-week aligned and booked sprint. And this sprint is designed for the behind-the-scenes leaders, the integrators, online business managers, project managers, virtual assistants, the ones who are ready to stop reacting, stop overworking, and start building a business that actually supports their life. Inside the sprint, we're going to focus on alignment first. Your offer, your pricing, your positioning, so you can create that real momentum and confidently land your next aligned client without burning yourself out or chasing every strategy. This isn't about doing more, it's about doing what actually matters. If 2025 taught you anything about what you're no longer available for, and 2026 feels like the year you want to move differently, I would love to support you inside the sprint. And if you are a visionary listening to this and you're not that behind the scenes person, but you do feel this too, I highly encourage you to connect with me, to reach out, whether that's on Facebook, Instagram, email, wherever else you're listening here. Connect with me. Let's have a conversation. Let's see where you're at and what makes sense for you next. So again, you can find all of the details in the show notes. We start the sprint in January, and I would love to have you in the room.